With 7 books and 8 movies, there are so many incredible lines from the vast number of characters in the Harry Potter series. I was originally going to make this video about each character's best line from the books, but I decided to pay tribute to both the amazing novels and the amazing films and give you the best line from each medium for each character. I tried my best to make the movie quotes lines that did not appear in the books, or at least weren't uttered by that character in the novel. There were some characters that did not have enough lines in the films to do both though, so the final 12 characters will have only one line from the novels. Now that we know the rules, let's get the video started. Harry Potter. It was hard to pick just one line from the hero of our story, but I picked one that I think embodies Harry's character arc throughout the series perfectly. In The Prisoner of Azkaban, he said, "I don't go looking for trouble, trouble usually finds me." And the line I chose from the movies is some of the best writing throughout any of the films in this franchise. It perfectly defines the struggle between Harry and Voldemort.
You're the weak one, and you'll never know love or friendship. And I feel sorry for you.
Hermione Granger. The best Hermione line was said in the first book. "I hope you're pleased with yourselves. We could have been killed, or worse, expelled." And Hermione's best movie line that wasn't in the books was,
I mean, it's sort of exciting, isn't it? Breaking the rules.
Who are you, and what have you done with Hermione Granger?
Ron Weasley. Ron's best line in the series was given to Hermione in the films, which is a real shame. The best Ron line is, "If you want to kill Harry, you'll have to kill us too," he said fiercely, though the effort of standing upright was draining him of still more color, and he swayed slightly as he spoke. Ron did this while on a broken leg, and it really emphasizes his greatest trait, his loyalty. He's ready to die to protect his best friend, and he guards him even while being in extreme pain. And as for his best movie line, we have to go with his speech before sacrificing himself.
"Harry, it's you that has to go on, I know it. Not me, not Hermione, you."
Adding this quote to Ron's heroic act was a brilliant idea from the filmmakers. Ginny Weasley. I think Ginny's best line comes during her breakup with Harry at the end of The Half-Blood Prince. "But you've been too busy saving the wizarding world." Well, I can't say I'm surprised. I knew this would happen in the end. I knew you wouldn't be happy unless you were hunting Voldemort. Maybe that's why I like you so much. This line only makes the breakup hurt even more, because we see just how well she understands Harry. She's meant to be with him, but they're parting ways. And now Ginny's best movie line.
Shoelace.
No, I'm just kidding. That's not only the worst Ginny line, but the worst line in all 8 films. Her best movie line that wasn't in the books was when Harry entered the Great Hall in The Half-Blood Prince.
"He's covered in blood again. Why is it he's always covered in blood?"
Just like the book line, it's Ginny watching from afar as Harry risks his life and gets hurt, Ginny knowing there was nothing she could do. Draco Malfoy. The best book line for Draco has to be what I think is his best and funniest insult. "Longbottom, if brains were gold, you'd be poorer than Weasley," and that's saying something. Knocking down 2 people with 1 insult, very impressive. And my favorite movie line that wasn't in the books. Do I have to keep saying that wasn't in the books? From now on, just know that every single movie quote wasn't in the novels, it was only made for the films. But anyway, his best movie line was one improvised by Tom Felton.
Reading? I didn't know you could read.
Neville Longbottom. The best Neville line was right before he killed Voldemort's snake Nagini. "I'll join you when hell freezes over. Dumbledore's army." He just became so badass at the end of the series, and this was the most badass and best line Neville spoke in the series. For the films, I'm going the complete opposite direction and showing how unbadass he was.
Why is it always me?
Luna Lovegood. Now, there's this quote floating around online that many notable sites have listed as one of Luna's lines, Screen Rant even listing it as her best one. But I searched for a long time, and this line doesn't exist. It was never said in the books or the films. All of these other pages messed up big time. I wanted to address it though because I didn't want people in the comments saying, "Oh my god, you missed Luna's best quote." Because no, I didn't. I just did my research, unlike some other people. Instead, Luna's best line from the book is her talking about her mother's death, something that really bonds her and Harry. I still feel very sad about it sometimes, but I've still got Dad. And anyway, it's not as though I'll never see Mom again, is it? And the best movie quote for Luna is a bit happier than the book one, and it's a quote that cracks me up every time I hear it.
Hello, Harry.
I've interrupted a deep thought, haven't I? I can see it growing smaller in your eyes.
It's just such a Luna thing to say. Sirius Black. The best line for Sirius in the novels is one that perfectly shows off his personality and his, dare I say, impulsiveness. You don't understand. There are things worth dying for. This predicts what he goes on to do, as he thinks it's worth the risk to go to the Ministry the night he dies. And his best movie line is one that he actually said twice in the 5th movie, which was beautiful writing on the filmmaker's part.
Expelliarmus! Nice one, James! Expelliarmus! Nice one, James!
I far prefer this as Sirius's last lines than his last lines in the book. Albus Dumbledore. Dumbledore has so many amazing quotes, but I had to go with his famous line in the afterlife. Do not pity the dead, Harry, pity the living, and above all those who live without love. This line explains why Voldemort lost in the most elegant way. Voldemort feared death and never embraced love, while Harry was the complete opposite. He met death in the face and used his loved ones to give him strength, and that gave him an edge up. The message of love conquers all, which defines the whole series, is perfectly represented in this one line. Now moving to the movies, and I'm sure most of you already guessed the quote. It's honestly the best quote the film's ever invented.
Happiness can be found even in the darkest of times, if one only remembers to turn on the light.
Severus Snape. For Snape, I'm not even going to do one for the book and the movie because it's the same for both. It's the line that will forever change how we look at Snape.
After all this time.
Always.
With just one word, the audience saw 6.5 books in a whole new light. Fred and George Weasley. Okay, for this one, I'm going to give each twin's best line in the book, then their movie line is going to be intertwined. For Fred, his best book line was passing the torch of tormenting Umbridge to Peeves the Poltergeist. Give her help from us, Peeves. Possibly the most legendary words of any Hogwarts student ever. And George's best book line is one that sums up the twins' view of school perfectly. What do we want to be prefects for? It'd take all the fun out of life. And look at that, they didn't need to be a prefect or finish school because they were very successful even without it. And the twins' best movie line is the last time we see the brothers interact.
You okay, Freddie? Yeah. Me too.
Man, that gets me every time. Molly Weasley. Like Snape, for Molly, I'm only gonna do one line because I'm not doing both book and movie. It's the same for both. And I'm sure most of you already know what it is, so I'm just gonna play it.
Not my daughter, you bitch!
Truly epic. Arthur Weasley. Arthur Weasley, who saw himself as a father figure to Harry, has his best line when scolding the people that were meant to be Harry's parents. As they left the Dursleys, Arthur said to Vernon and Petunia, "You aren't going to see your nephew till next summer. Surely you're going to say goodbye." And this put Harry's aunt and uncle in their place, forcing them to say goodbye to him. And now the best movie line, which is much more lighthearted.
Tell me, what exactly is the function of a rubber duck?
Ruby is Hagrid. Hagrid is of course a half-giant, and he struggled with this for a while, being ashamed of it. But in what I think is his best line in the series, he finally accepts himself for who he is and how he was born. I am what I am, I'm not ashamed. Never be ashamed, my old dad used to say. There's some who will hold it against you, but they're not worth bothering with. And his best movie line is one of the most famous Harry Potter quotes of all time.
You're a wizard, Harry.
And I know what you're thinking. Morgan, that line was said in the books too. I thought you were only doing lines that didn't appear in the novel. Well, guess what? Hagrid saying,
"You're a wizard, Harry,"
was not in the books. He actually said, "Harry, you're a wizard." There is a big difference. It's switched up, but I am bending the rules a bit. But how could I not have what is arguably the most famous Harry Potter line in a video about the best quotes? Minerva Mcgonagall. Okay, so to understand McGonagall's best line from the novels, it needs a lot of context, so I'm going to read the whole passage. But stay with me, trust me, it'll be worth it. Well, is this true? Is what true? Is it true that you shouted at Professor Umbridge? Yes. You called her a liar? Yes. You told her he who must not be named is back? Yes. Professor McGonagall sat behind her desk frowning at Harry. Then she said, "Have a biscuit, Potter." The build-up for this is just so perfect. It's the last thing you expect McGonagall to say, and it perfectly represents what kind of person and teacher she is. Stern, but always has the kids' best interest at heart. And as for a best movie line, I couldn't choose between two, so we're gonna go over both of them. The first one is just the sweetest and cutest thing you'll ever see. The line makes you fall in love with both McGonagall and Maggie Smith who plays her.
I've always wanted to use that spell.
And the second line was when Ron and Harry were late to their first day of class.
Perhaps it would be more useful if I were to transfigure Mr. Potter and yourself into a pocket watch. That way one of you might be on time.
We got lost.
Then perhaps a map.
Just classic McGonagall. Tom Riddle, aka Voldemort. The book quote I chose basically explains Voldemort's backstory, his motivations, and why he is the way he is. You think I was going to use my filthy muggle father's name forever? I, in whose veins runs the blood of Salazar Slytherin himself through my mother's side? I keep the name of a foul common muggle who abandoned me before I was born just because he found out his wife was a witch? No, Harry. I fashioned myself a new name. A name I knew wizards everywhere would one day fear to speak when I had become the greatest sorcerer in the world. And the best movie line for Voldemort came at the end of the Battle of the Department of Mysteries.
You're a fool, Harry Potter. And you will lose everything.
Bellatrix Lestrange. Speaking of the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, this is where Bellatrix's best book line took place. Now let's see how long Longbottom lasts before he cracks like his parents. This line is just so evil because she of course tortured Neville's parents so much that it drove them into insanity. The best Bellatrix line was actually said in two different films, both while running away from Harry. The first use of it was the better of the two though, as she used this line to taunt Harry mere seconds after killing his godfather. Dobby. Like Snape and Molly, Dobby doesn't need a line from the book and the movie. There is just one and only one line that defines Dobby's journey in the series.
Dobby has no master. Dobby is a free elf, and Dobby has come to save Harry Potter and his friends.
And tragically, this is one of the last things he does and says. Remus Lupin. Remus has many incredible lines, but I think his best line comes in the afterlife when talking about his son Teddy who he left behind. I am sorry too. Sorry I will never know him, but he will know why I died, and I hope he will understand. I was trying to make a world in which he could live a happier life. And for his best quote, we'll go with a much more lighthearted one as he joked about Bill, who had just been attacked by the werewolf Greyback.
Just remember, Fleur, Bill takes his steaks on the raw side now.
My husband the Joker.
Nymphadora Tonks. My favorite Tonks line was another lighthearted one, as she makes reference to what Moody had said earlier about how having wands in your back pocket can lead to blasting your butt cheek off. Wands still in your jeans? Both buttocks still on? Okay, let's go. And the best movie line was when she joined Lupin in the Battle of Hogwarts.
You shouldn't have! It's Teddy who needs you.
He'll sleep till dawn and snore like his father. It's you that needs me tonight.
This line unfortunately never made it in the final cut of the film. It was only released as a deleted scene, which is almost criminal because it's just outstanding. Dudley Dursley. Dudley's best line in the novels was his redemption. As he and Harry left on good terms, he said, "I don't think you're a waste of space," which, as Harry said, was as close to "I love you" as Dudley would ever get. And his best movie quote is one that really cut deep for both Harry and the audience.
Where is your mum? Where is your mum, Potter? She dead? Is she dead?
Adding that line was so brilliant on the filmmaker's part, and it really accentuated the tension of that situation. Fern and Dursley. The best Vernon line in the novels was spoken to Alistair Mad-Eye Moody. And do I look like the kind of man who can be intimidated? The best part about this quote though is what happens after it's said. Moody lifts his hat to reveal his magical eye, and Vernon jumps back terrified. Moody then says, "Yes, I'd have to say you do, Dursley." The best movie line for Vernon is,
"There's no such thing as magic."
It's a line that seems like it should have been in the book, but it actually wasn't, which sort of surprised me. Petunia Dursley. Petunia's best book line was uttered when she was just a child. After she found out she wasn't going to be able to go to Hogwarts with Lily, she lashed out and said her most notable line. Apparently wizards stick their noses in everywhere, freak. It was the quote that ruined the sisters' relationship forever. It was the first, but certainly not the last malicious thing she would say about witches and wizards, all triggered by this one moment where she was exposed for wanting to be one of them. And as for her best movie line, like Tonks' incredible line, this too was taken out of the final cut of the movie. It was only released as a deleted scene, and with this one quote, it redeems Petunia's character.
You didn't just lose a mother that night in Godric's Hollow, you know. I lost a sister.
Gellert Grindelwald. Yeah, screw it, we're gonna throw in some Fantastic Beasts characters. Believe it or not, Grindelwald did have a few lines in the original series, and the one I chose is one of the most powerful quotes in the entire series. He refuses to help Voldemort find the Elder Wand, redeeming his character in his final act. Kill me then, you will not win, you cannot win. The wand will never ever be yours. And then, Voldemort took his life. And his best movie line came during the Crimes of Grindelwald.
I say the Muggles are not lesser, but other. Not worthless, but of other value. Not disposable, but of a different disposition.
It flawlessly delivers what he's campaigning, and like any good dictator, he makes a statement that houses a lot of contempt and hate sound like it's a good idea. Gilderoy Lockhart. I had fun going through Lockhart's lines for this video, and I think the one I chose is his funniest and greatest. Yes, I know what you're thinking. It's alright for him, he's an internationally famous wizard already. But when I was 12, I was just as much of a nobody as you are now. In fact, I'd say I was even more of a nobody. I mean, a few people have heard of you, haven't they? All that business with he who must not be named. I know, it's not quite as good as winning Witch Weekly's Most Charming Smile Award 5 times in a row as I have. But it's a start, Harry, it's a start. He's just so arrogant and such an airhead, it makes for great entertainment. And now his best movie line.
It's an odd sort of place, this, isn't it? Do you live here?
I actually love this quote so much that I forgot it wasn't in the books. And to this day, it's one of the funniest scenes in the franchise for me. Lucius Malfoy. My favorite Lucius lines might surprise some of you. As he was talking to Voldemort during the Battle of Hogwarts, he said, Aren't you afraid, my lord, that Potter might die at another hand but yours? Wouldn't it be, forgive me, more prudent to call this battle off, enter the castle, and seek him out yourself? The reason I didn't go with one of his snarky or rude quotes is because this quote strips down the many layers of Lucius. This was him putting all pride aside, and even more, his fear of Voldemort aside, desperately trying to stop the battle so he could make sure his son was okay. And moving on to his best movie line. Like Tom Felton, Lucius's actor Jason Isaacs also improvised what I consider to be his best line in the films.
Well, let us hope that Mr. Potter will always be around to save the day.
And Radcliffe's improvised response of course makes it even better.
Don't worry, I will be.
Narcissa Malfoy. Like Lucius, Narcissa's best line in the novels also put everything aside to ensure Draco's safety. She lied to not only the entire army of Death Eaters, but to Lord Voldemort himself, as she said, "He is dead." And her best movie line is one of the most quoted by Draco Malfoy fans.
He's just a boy.
This was another line that I forgot wasn't in the books. I guess because it's used so much online these days by Draco fans. Lily Potter. Lily's best line was the first word she spoke when standing in front of her now grown-up son. "You've been so brave." And as for her best lines in the films, again I chose 2 because I just couldn't decide. The first one came during Harry's first duel with Voldemort in the graveyard.
Sweetheart, you're ready. Let go! Let go!
A line I always wished was in the book. And the second movie line was her comforting a baby Harry moments before she died.
Harry, you are so loved. So loved. Harry, Mama loves you. Dada loves you. Harry, be safe. Be strong.
James Potter. James's best line in the novel was spoken to Harry in the afterlife. "We are so proud of you." The pause he takes is what really gets me, as he's choked up saying it. James's best movie line shows a completely different side to him though, as he says,
"Who wants to see me Take off Snively's trousers.
And this line technically wasn't in the books, but it sort of was. In the novel, he says pants, and in the film, he says trousers. So it is different, and I'm gonna count it. Alistair Mad-Eye Moody. For the books, we have to go with his catchphrase, which is said so many times throughout the series: constant vigilance. Hermione even gets choked up when remembering this line after his death. And his best line in the films has to be his line about the Polyjuice Potion.
For those of you who haven't taken Polyjuice Potion before, fair warning, it tastes like goblin piss.
I have lots of experiences with that, Diamado.
Kingsley Shacklebolt. Kingsley's best book line makes it clear why he became Minister of Magic after the Battle of Hogwarts. I'd say that it's one small step from Wizards first to Purebloods first and then to Death Eaters. We're all human, aren't we? Every human life is worth the same and worth saving. And the best Kingsley quote in the films is,
"You may not like him, Minister, but you can't deny Dumbledore's got style."
A line that wasn't said by Kingsley in the book, but by Phineas Nigellus Black. So according to the rules that I set up in the beginning, it does count because Kingsley did not say it. Argus Filch. My favorite Filch line in the books came in the first novel. "It's just a pity they let the old punishments die out. Hang you by your wrist from the ceiling for a few days. I've got the chains in my office. Keep them well oiled in case they're ever needed." Filch is one messed up dude. And my favorite Filch line in the movies came in the Chamber of Secrets.
"Oh dear, we are in trouble."
The delivery of that line by David Bradley was just executed so perfectly. Dolores Umbridge. What I picked as Umbridge's best book line is funny because of how unironically false it would later become. She says to Harry in the Order of the Phoenix, "The Ministry places a rather higher value on my life than yours, I'm afraid." But where did they turn out? Oh yeah, the Ministry sent Umbridge to Azkaban and made Harry an esteemed Auror even without completing his 7th year at Hogwarts. But no, they definitely value your life more than Harry's, Dolores. And as for Umbridge's best movie line, this one shows how sadistic and cruel she is.
That's right. Because you know, deep down, you deserve to be punished. Don't you, Mr. Potter?
Horace Slughorn. Slughorn's best line in the novels is when he finally faces what he had feared for so many years, what he told Tom Riddle. "I am ashamed of what that memory shows. I think I may have done great damage that day." And Slughorn's best movie line was the story he told Harry in Hagrid's hut.
"The flower petal had come from a lily. Your mother. The day I came downstairs. The day the bowl was empty. Was the day your mother."
I've said in past videos that I'm not the biggest fan of this addition to the film. I far prefer the book's version of these events, but this story does house a few great lines like the one I just played for you, and I do think it's Slughorn's best line from the 8 movies. Fenrir Greyback. Greyback is probably the most evil person in the Harry Potter series. Yes, even more than Lord Voldemort. We find out that he developed a taste for human flesh that couldn't be satisfied once a month while in his werewolf form, so he began attacking people in his human form as well. His main victims were children, which is why this line stands out as his most notable. "I wouldn't want to miss a trip to Hogwarts, Dumbledore, not when there are throats to be ripped out. Delicious, delicious." And his best line in the films came during that same scene, but his dialogue was drastically toned down for the big screen, so he instead taunted Draco when he wouldn't kill Dumbledore.
"He doesn't have the stomach, just like his father."
It's a great line because it really emphasizes how scared Draco was in that moment, and it foreshadows the weakness and indecisiveness that we would later see from Lucius in the next installment. Okay, so now we get to the characters that didn't have enough lines in the films to have a quote for both the book and the movie. So going forward, this is just their best quote in the novels. Percy Weasley. Percy's best line came during the Battle of Hogwarts. He begins to duel the Minister of Magic, Pius Thicknesse, and jokingly says, "Hello, Minister. Did I mention I'm resigning?" A line that delighted Fred and was the last thing Fred ever heard. Because of this quote from Percy, the ghost of Fred's last laugh was still etched upon his lifeless face. Newt Scamander. Yep, we're adding some more Fantastic Beasts characters. My favorite line for Newt is,
"Well, my philosophy is that worrying means you suffer twice."
A line that pretty much anyone in the magical world or the real world could take to heart. Bill Weasley. My favorite Bill line came when he was super flustered. Harry, what the hell's going on? You turn up here with a dead house elf and a half-conscious goblin. Hermione looks as though she's been tortured, and Ron's just refused to tell me anything. Fleur Delacour. Fleur loves her good looks, and she loves Bill Weasley even after he was mauled by Greyback. Put that together and you get one of the best lines in the entire series, and by far the best quote from Fleur. What do I care how he looks? I am good looking enough for both of us, I think. All these scars show was that my husband is brave. Leta Lestrange. Leta's best line is one of the most show-stopping quotes in the entire Harry Potter fandom. The way Zoe Kravitz delivered it is just so chilling.
Newt. You never met a monster you couldn't love.
It not only defines how she sees herself, but the way she views Newt's good nature as well. Cho Chang. Cho was of course Cedric's girlfriend when he died, and with that comes a lot of trauma. She dealt with it by throwing herself into the DA, and that's where I think her best line in the series was uttered. But if they think I'm not going to fight you-know-who after what happened to Cedric, it's a line that shows how much she has bottled up, and it really makes you feel for her character. Queenie Goldstein. My favorite Tina line comes from her cute interaction with Newt, responding to Newt saying,
It's interesting because your eyes in newsprint, it's like fire in water. I've only ever seen that in...
Tina replies with what I think is her best line, saying,
Salamanders.
It's a really nice moment, and it only makes you fall in love with this pairing even more. Mundungus Fletcher. I knew going into this that finding Mundungus's best line would be straight comedy, and I think the line I chose is his funniest moment. And then, if you'll believe it, he says to me, "Here, Dung, where'd you get all these toads from? Cause some son of a blood just gone and nicked all mine." And I says, "Nicked all your toads? Well, what next? So you'll be wanting some more then." And if you'll believe me, lads, the Gormless Gargoyle buys all his own toads back off me for twice what he paid in the first place. I can see why Molly thinks he's a bad influence on her kids. It all makes sense now. Jacob Kowalski. Jacob is a fan favorite in the Fantastic Beasts films, and a line of his that always stuck with me was his reaction to seeing all of the magical creatures for the first time.
I don't think I'm dreaming. I ain't got the brains to make this up.
Sybil Trelawney. Sybil had possibly the most important line or lines in the entire series, and that was of course the prophecy that regarded Harry and Voldemort. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches, born to those who have thrice defied him, born as the 7th month dies. And the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have power the Dark Lord knows not. And either must die at the hand of the other, for neither can live while the other survives. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord will be born as the 7th month dies. This quote from Sybil, or this prophecy from Sybil, is what set everything in the series into motion. Queenie Goldstein. My favorite Queenie line was one that she said in the first Fantastic Beasts movie.
People are easiest to read when they're hurting.
And the thing that makes this interesting is in the next movie, she's the one hurting, which Grindelwald might have taken advantage of to get her to join his side. Her own words in the first movie match up to her actions in the second one. And finally, Kreacher the house elf. At first, Kreacher was a grumpy and rude house elf with no filter, but once we find out his backstory with Regulus Black, our view of him does a complete 180. Then, in the final battle, Kreacher leads the house elves into the fight, and that is where his best line is uttered. Fight the Dark Lord in the name of brave Regulus. Fight. And there you have it, 48 Harry Potter characters' best quotes. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can follow me on Instagram to see more of my personal life, like my cute dog Loki, and some behind the scenes movie flame stuff. I also do similar content on TikTok and Twitter that I do here on this channel, so if you like what I do here, check them out. All the handles are right below me, and links are in the description. Over here are my wonderful patrons. If you want to be featured on the next video, plus get a few other perks, become a patron today. As always, if you liked the video, hit that like button and subscribe, and look out for more great movie flame videos on the way.